Welcome back to StoriesX. When a ruthless white woman cop frames a 78-year-old black ex-teacher, she unwittingly arms her with the truth to dismantle a 20-year reign of corruption. And with the U.S. Attorney General as her son, Precinct 18's fortress faces its final reckoning. Get ready for a wild ride of defiance and payback. You won't look away. The late afternoon sun spilled golden light across Oakwood Heights, a pristine enclave where wealth gleamed in every manicured lawn and polished storefront. Inside Thompson's Market, Eleanor Davis moved with quiet grace down the produce aisle, her pearl necklace, a retirement gift from her students, catching the fluorescent glow. At 78, her wiry frame bore the dignity of 4 decades in classroom, her dark skin etched with lines of wisdom, her short gray hair tucked neatly beneath a modest hat. She wore a simple navy dress, her brown eyes sharp as she inspected a bunch of organic bananas, planning Sunday dinner with precision of a teacher grading papers. The store's sterile air hummed with the soft clink of carts and murmurs of its upscale clientele, who cast sidelong glances her way, unwelcome curiosity she'd long learned to ignore. Near the entrance, 2 figures in dark blue uniforms lingered, their presence a stark contrast to the market's polish. Officer Danielle Blake stood with arms crossed, her lean build taut with authority, pale skin stark under the lights, blonde hair cropped short beneath her cap. Her icy blue eyes scanned the aisles, lips curled in a faint sneer, badge glinting like a weapon. Beside her, Officer Sarah Harris, younger and wiry, fidgeted with eagerness, her pale face set in a practiced scowl, dark hair pulled tight in a bun. Blake nudged her partner, voice low and edged. "Look at her. Doesn't fit here, does she?" Harris smirked, straightening. "Want to shake her up?" They moved toward Eleanor, boots thudding deliberately on the tile, a predator's rhythm. Eleanor looked up as they closed in, her expression calm, despite the sudden knot in her chest. Blake's voice cut through, laced with fake courtesy. "Ma'am, we had complaints, suspicious activity in the store." Eleanor set the bananas down, hands steady. "I'm just shopping, officer. Been in this city over 50 years. Longer than you've been alive, I reckon." Blake's smirk widened, eyes narrowing. "Really? You shop here often?" "I go where I please," Eleanor replied, her teacher's tone firm, unwavering. "This market has what I need for my Sunday dinner." The store manager, Thomas Parker, a nervous man with a pressed shirt and thinning hair, hurried over, his pale face twitching as he sided with the badges. "She's been wandering for an hour. Customers are concerned." Eleanor's grip tightened on her purse strap, voice crisp. "That's a lie. I've been here 20 minutes. Got my parking receipt to prove it." Blake stepped closer, crowding her space. "Let's see some ID, ma'am." As Eleanor reached for her purse, Blake grabbed her arm, yanking hard. She stumbled, oranges tumbling for the display as she hit the floor, pain shooting through her hip. "Stop resisting." Blake shouted, though Eleanor hadn't moved beyond catching her fall. "I'm not." Eleanor began, but Harris was on her, wrenching her arms back, cuffs biting into her wrists. Shoppers gawked, then looked away, as if the scattered fruit were the real crime. Across the store, Jordan Carter, a young black man with a lean build and dark skin, fumbled with his phone, hands shaking as he recorded. His brown eyes burned with anger, short dreads framing a face set in defiance. Blake spotted him, storming over. "Delete that now." "I know my rights," Jordan started, but Blake twisted his arm, forcing the phone free. "Delete it or you're next downtown." Jordan's shoulders slumped, erasing the video under her glare. Eleanor watched, her calm unshaken, memorizing every move. "I want your supervisor," she said, voice ringing clear. Blake laughed, ugly and sharp. "You'll be lucky if we don't tack on assault, lady." They hauled her out, the golden day mocking her as justice bent to their will. The interior of Precinct 18 was a grim cathedral of power, its fluorescent lights buzzing like trapped insects, casting harsh shadows across worn linoleum floors. Eleanor Davis sat on a metal bench in a barren holding cell, her wiry frame rigid in a gray jumpsuit they'd forced her into after stripping away her navy dress. Her dark skin glistened with a faint sheen of sweat, Her short gray hair matted from the rough ride in the patrol car. The cuffs had left red marks on her wrists, but her brown eyes burned with a quiet, unyielding resolve, a teacher's gaze, honed over decades. The air stank of stale coffee and desperation, a fitting tune for Precinct's 20-year reign of corruption. The cell door clanged open, and Officer Danielle Blake strode in, her lean form tense with authority, pale skin stark against her dark blue uniform. Her blonde hair sat tight beneath her cap, and her icy blue eyes glinted with smug satisfaction. Lips curled in a sneer as she gripped a clipboard. "Comfy, Davis?" she drawled, voice dripping venom. "Thought you'd learn your PLA." Eleanor rose slowly, meeting Blake's stare, her tone steady as steel. "My place is wherever I choose, officer. You got no cause to hold me." Blake laughed, sharp and cold, tapping the clipboard. "No cause? Disturbing the peace, resisting arrest, assaulting an officer. You're a regular menace, ain't ya?" "Lies," Eleanor said, her voice cutting through the mockery. "I didn't resist. You shoved me. Everyone saw it." Blake stepped closer, her sneer widening. "Everyone? Those rich folks at Thompson's? They don't see nothing when I'm around. You're just an old troublemaker who don't belong." "I've lived here longer than you've breathed," Eleanor replied, unflinching. "What's this really about? Scare me into silence." "You wish," Blake snapped, slamming the clipboard against the bars. "You're a lesson, Davis. Cross us and you're done. No supervisor, no phone call, night shift's too busy." Eleanor's eyes narrowed, catching the flicker of arrogance in Blake's face. "Too busy destroying evidence, you mean? I hear more than you think." Blake's smirk faltered, her hand twitching toward her holster. "Watch your mouth. Old lady, you're in deep enough." "Am I?" Eleanor's calm held firm. "Or are you? That's fear in your eyes, not power." Blake's face twisted, but before she could retort, her radio crackled. "Mitchell Harris, Chief's office now." She glared at Eleanor, then stormed out, boots echoing down the hall, her pace betraying a crack in her steel. Eleanor sat back, hands folded, mind racing. The precinct's hum buzzed with secrets, officers passing with hushed tones, files slipping into back rooms. She'd heard Mitchell's voice earlier, joking about clean reports, and caught a sergeant muttering about Callahan's orders. Every word, every name lodged in her memory, a ledger of corruption she'd begun the moment they locked her in. Hours crept by, the cell's cold seeping into her bones, but Eleanor stayed alert. Around midnight, two officers lingered outside her bars. Detective James Wilson, heavy-set with thinning gray hair, pale skin ruddy with coffee, and a rookie, fresh-faced and nervous. "Like with the old lady?" Wilson chuckled, stirring his mug. "Cam off, plan something. Judge signs off, easy win." The rookie shifted, voice low. "What about the cams?" "Tech fails all the time, kid." Wilson winked, his smug grin wide. "Mitchell's got it down." Eleanor's lips pressed thin, her teacher's mind cataloging. Wilson, Mitchell, Callahan. Threads of a web she'd unravel. They thought her helpless, a shadow in their fortress. They didn't know she was watching, listening, waiting. One call to Malcolm, and this empire would burn. Justice wasn't coming. It was already here in her steady gaze. The gray dawn seeped through the high, barred windows of Precinct 18, casting a cold pallor over the holding cell where Eleanor Davis sat. Her wiry frame remained upright on the metal bench, the gray jumpsuit hanging loose on her dark skin, still marked by faint sweat from a sleepless night. Her short gray hair clung to her scalp, but her brown eyes gleamed with unyielding focus, sharpened by decades of teaching and a lifetime of facing down injustice. The cell's concrete walls echoed with the precinct's restless hum, shuffling boots, muttered curses, the shredder's distant whine. Eleanor's hands rested folded in her lap, her mind a steel trap, cataloging every whisper, every slip of the corrupt machine she'd been thrust into. The door swung open with a harsh clang, and Officer Danielle Blake stormed in, her lean form bristling with tension, pale skin flushed with a mix of fury and fatigue. Her dark blue uniform was creased, blonde hair slightly askew under her cap, and her icy blue eyes burned with frantic edge, lips twisted into a snarl. She clutched a stack of papers, her voice a low hiss. "You're still here, Davis? Thought you'd cry uncle by now." Eleanor stood, slow and deliberate, meeting Blake's glare with calm resolve. "I don't cry, officer. I watch. I listen. You're the one looking rattled. What's eating you?" Blake slammed the papers against the bars, her smirk brittle. "Rattled? You're dreaming, old lady. We got you sewn up, resisting, assault, the works. Judge will bury you by noon." "Lies don't bury truth," Eleanor said, her tone steady as granite. "I heard your boys last night. Wilson bragged you about planting evidence. Callahan's name on every dirty order. You're scared, 'cause the walls are whispering back." Blake's eyes widened, a flicker of panic breaking her steel. "Shut it. You don't hear nothing. Nobody believes an old hag like you." "Then why's your hand shaking?" Eleanor pressed, voice cutting deep. "Files go missing?" Fed sniffing. "You're losing your grip, Blake." Blake's snarl faltered, her hand jerking to her holster, but a radio crackle cut through. "Blake, Chief's office, now. Feds just called again." She froze, breath hitching, then spun on her heel, barking over her shoulder. "You're done, Davis. Keep dreaming." Her boots pounded away, but the tremor in her step betrayed her crumbling facade. Eleanor sat back, lips curving faintly. She'd caught more overnight. Detective Wilson's smug, "Tech fails all the time." Sergeant Walsh's, "Cleaning for Callahan," a web of names and deeds etched in her mind. The precinct was a fortress cracking under its own weight. Across town, the federal building buzzed with quiet urgency, its sleek corridors a stark contrast to Precinct 18's grime. Malcolm Davis paced his office, a muscular figure in a tailored suit, his dark skin taut with focus. Short black hair framing a chiseled face. His brown eyes burned with resolve, lips set in a grim line as he reviewed a stack of files. His chief of staff, Sarah Williams, strode in, her stout frame brisk in a gray blazer, dark skin glowing under the lights, her tight bun bobbing as she spoke. "Malcolm, Lisa Carter just sent this," Sarah said, handing over a USB drive. "Body cam backups, your mom's arrest, plus years of dirt. It's gold." Malcolm plugged it in, jaw tightening as grainy footage played. Blake shoving Eleanor, Harris cuffing her. No resistance, just brutality. "They're sloppy," he muttered, voice low and lethal. "Thought nobody'd look." "She's been watching them, hasn't she?" Sarah asked, eyes sharp. "Always," Malcolm said, a faint smile breaking through. "One call from her, and this ends. Get the marshals ready. Precinct 18's fortress falls today." The fluorescent lights of Precinct 18 flickered erratically, casting a jittery glow over the holding cell where Eleanor Davis sat. Her wiry frame was still in a gray jumpsuit, dark skin marked by faint sweat from 2 days of confinement. Her short gray hair matted but her posture unbowed. Her brown eyes glinted with a calm, steely resolve, honed by decades of teaching and a lifetime of resilience. The cell's concrete walls vibrated with the precinct's rising chaos. Shredders whirring, voices barking, boots pounding as a corrupt machine teetered. Eleanor's hands rested folded, her mind a vault of every damning word she'd overheard. Wilson's boasts, Callahan's orders, Blake's threats. The door slammed open, and Officer Danielle Blake stormed in, her lean form coiled with desperation, pale skin splotched with panic. Her dark blue uniform hung askew, blonde hair slipping from under her cap, and her icy blue eyes blazed with a frantic fury, lips twisted in a snarl. She gripped a radio, voice cracking as she loomed over Eleanor. "You think you've won, Davis? Fed sniffing around don't mean shit. We're still in charge." Eleanor rose, slow and steady, meeting Blake's wild stare. "In charge? You're unraveling, Blake. Heard your chief last night. Clean it quick. Feds are close. You're running scared." Blake's snarl broke, her hand slamming the radio against the bars. "Shut up. You don't know nothing. Nobody's coming for you." "Then why is your voice shaking?" Eleanor said, calm slicing through the chaos. "Mitchell planting drugs, Whitaker fixing cases. You're all exposed and you know it." Blake's face drained, eyes darting as her radio crackled. "Blake, chiefs lose it. Files are gone. She froze, breath hitching, then lunged, grabbing Eleanor's arm. You're moving. Max security, out of sight. Eleanor didn't flinch, voice firm. Touch me again, and you'll regret it more than you already do. Before Blake could respond, the precinct's front doors exploded open with a thunderous crash. Federal agents. Hands up. Voices boomed, boots stormed to the air filled with shouts. Blake spun, gun drawn, eyes wild, but Eleanor sat back, a faint smile tugging her lips. The storm had hit. Across town, the federal building's command center buzzed with precision, its sleek walls lined with screens flashing live feeds. Malcolm Davis stood at the helm, his muscular frame tense in a tailored suit, dark skin taut with focus, short black hair framing a chiseled face. His brown eyes burned with determination, lips set as he barked orders. Marshals in position, hit him now. Beside him, Sarah Williams, stout and brisk in a gray blazer, her dark skin glowing, tight bun bobbing, relayed updates, voice sharp. Malcolm, Lisa's feed just came through, Sarah said, plugging in a drive. Callahan's panicking. Ordered a transfer for your mom. Malcolm's jaw tightened as footage played. Blake dragging Eleanor, Callahan shouting, lose her in the system. He slammed a fist on the desk. They're desperate. Move the team, secure her first. Sarah nodded, radio crackling. Units. Prioritize cell block. Eleanor Davis, now. Back at Precinct 18, chaos reigned. Federal marshals swarmed, badges flashing, weapons raised. Blake stumbled back from Eleanor's cell, gun trembling as agents flooded the corridor. Drop it. A marshal roared, and her weapon clattered to the floor, her sneer collapsing into terror. Chief Callahan burst from his office, silver hair wild, uniform rumpled, shouting, "This is my precinct," only to be tackled mid-stride, cuffs snapping on. Eleanor stood, hand steady, watching Blake cuffed against the wall. Told you, she said, voice cutting through the din. Justice don't bend. An agent approached, respectful. Mrs. Davis, you're safe. Let's go. She walked out, head high, the fortress crumbling behind her. The evening sky over Millbrook hung heavy with the weight of change, its golden hues fading as floodlights pierced the chaos outside Precinct 18. Eleanor Davis stood just beyond the precinct doors, her wiry frame free of the gray jumpsuit, now clad in a navy coat, retrieved from evidence. Her dark skin bore the faint sheen of resilience, short gray hair catching the breeze, and her brown eyes shone with quiet triumph, a teacher's gaze that had seen injustice fall. The air buzzed with sirens, shouts, and the clatter of cuffs as federal agents swarmed, hauling corrupt officers into vans. Eleanor's hands rested steady, her pearl necklace glinting, a symbol of the storm she'd unleashed. Inside the precinct's wreckage, Officer Danielle Blake slumped against a wall, her lean form deflated, pale skin sallow with defeat. Her dark blue uniform was torn, blonde hair spilling from her cap, and her icy blue eyes flickered with desperation, lips quivering as cuffs bit into her wrists. "This ain't over, Davis," she spat, voice hoarse, but it cracked under the weight of her ruin. Agents dragged her toward a van, her badge stripped, her empire dust. Eleanor turned, unfazed, as Malcolm Davis approached, his muscular frame commanding in a tailored suit, dark skin taut with purpose, short black hair framing a chiseled face. His brown eyes softened with relief, lips parting in a faint smile as he embraced her. "Mom, you're safe. Thank God. Safe and sharper for it," Eleanor replied, her voice steady, patting his cheek. "They thought they'd silence me, Malcolm. Gave me a front row seat instead." He nodded, eyes hardening. "We've got M. Blake Callahan, Whitaker, Kensington. Lisa's evidence, and your words broke it wide open." Across the precinct lot, Chief Callahan stumbled in cuffs, his silver hair wild, uniform askew, his one smug face pale with disbelief. "You can't do this," he bellowed, but a marshal shoved him into a van, silencing his reign. Nearby, Judge Whitaker, silver-haired and frail in a wrinkled suit, muttered pleas as agents led him away, his judicial arrogance shattered. Mayor Kensington, his tailored jacket rumpled, fought against cuffs, his pale face twisted in panic, but the cameras caught every step of his fall. Eleanor watched, her smile faint but fierce. They underestimated us. Son, thought power was theirs to keep. They forgot justice answers, Malcolm said, voice low and lethal. He turned to Sarah Williams, who strode up, her stout frame brisk in a gray blazer, dark skin glowing, tight bun bobbing as she handed him a tablet. Malcolm, we've got more. Kensington's files from a mansion. Bribes, rigged contracts. Goes beyond the city. Keep digging, he ordered, scanning the screen. No deals, no mercy, they face it all. Back inside, the precinct lay gutted. Computers seized, files boxed, evidence of 20 years corruption spilling into the open. Detective Lisa Carter emerged, her lean frame weary in a plain jacket. Pale skin marked by sleepless nights, dark hair loose. Her green eyes met Eleanor's, a nod passing between them. Mrs. Davis, your testimony, my evidence, it worked, she said, voice steady. They're done. You gave us the tools, Eleanor replied, her tone warm. Courage lit the fuse. Outside, Jordan Carter joined them, his lean build tense in a hoodie, dark skin bruised but unbowed, brown eyes fierce. They tried to bury me too. Max security, he said, voice shaking with relief. You saved me, Mrs. Davis. We save each other, she corrected, her teacher's calm unwavering. Truth won today. As the vans rolled away, cameras flashed, crowds cheered, a city reborn from its ashes. Eleanor stood tall, the storm she'd promised now a beacon. Precinct 18's fortress had fallen, and justice, slow but sure, prevailed. Millbrook's dusk settled as Eleanor Davis stood triumphant. Precinct 18's corrupt reign shattered by her unyielding truth. Danielle Blake, Callahan, Whitaker, and Kensington, once untouchable, fell in cuffs, their empire of brutality raised by a 78-year-old ex-teacher's courage and her son Malcolm's justice. Lisa Carter's evidence and Jordan's resilience sealed their fate, turning a fortress of fear into a beacon of change. Eleanor's pearl necklace gleamed, a testament to defiance that sparked the city's awakening. This is your call. When power turns predator, don't bow, watch, listen, fight. One voice like Eleanor's can topple giants. Truth is your weapon. Courage your shield. Thanks for joining us on StoriesX. Hit subscribe, tell us where you're at, and stand up where you stand. Justice isn't handed out, it's claimed. Next time, another tale of grit awaits. Keep the faith.